What's up, guys? Buffalo Prime here, bringing you more HR content. For those of you that don't know, I've been an HR business partner for about 4 years now. Total HR experience around 8. I have an MBA. I'm basically just saying all this stuff so you're not like, who is this guy and why is he talking about HR? If you like what you see, obviously leave a comment in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. It just helps channels out when you do stuff like that. It gets more eyes in front of it, which is obviously helpful. Why did my phone go off? Anyway, let's dive in. All right, first question of the day comes from Hunter Hunt 14 from from Illinois, saying, "Can I have multiple pips in HR without me for me without my knowledge?" Okay. A few months ago, I was terminated from a position, and one thing that stuck out to me was I was told I had 3 pips in place for me in HR prior to me being given one to sign. Up until I was given a PIP to sign, I received 2 promotions based on my work, so it was confusing. Can a company put me on a PIP without informing me? And is this common? I know my state is at will. Just wanted to have this for future info. The first comment is really good. Can, yes, should, no, only if they're idiots or are working with idiot managers. I like that response. So it kind of doesn't matter if HR has a PIP for you if you've never seen it or signed it, because, again, they can terminate you for any reason or no reason at all at will states, so they don't necessarily have to have any documentation, although documentation helps dissuade lawsuits usually. So if you were to say, like, oh, you terminated me because I'm a man or because I'm a woman, because of my color of my skin or something like that, they can be like, no, here's a documentation trail of poor performance. That's why you were terminated. So it doesn't help them to have PIPs on file that you've never seen before. And you can testify to, I've never been issued this, I've never seen it before. Obviously, you've never signed it because of those things. So the company can't even prove that they've delivered it to you. So it's just kind of weird for them to put you on a PIP and not tell you about it. But I guess they technically could. It might be a different thing than a normal performance improvement plan, but I don't know. That's weird. This next question is from Sorry Not Sorry. From New York, saying, new at toxic office in Newfield, how long before leaving? They've had a high turnover rate of assistants, wonder why, and unfortunately didn't know about that red flag sooner. More power to the other assistants for getting dollar, doing absolutely nothing, but I can't possibly find myself here doing everything for much longer. If there isn't a more equitable workload balance, is it worth bringing up to boss? A part of me wants to make it work, and a part of my wants to get the experience and leave, obviously, once another offer's on the table. How long should I stay? And how would this short stay look on a resume? So here's a couple of things. First of all, grammar. It's a wonderful thing. Second of all, I would say that if you're in a company in a position that you don't like and you have the wherewithal to be able to leave, as in, backup income, savings, things like that, just leave, right? You don't even have to include this on a resume. Why would you don't have to include every work experience you've ever had on your resume. And frankly, you can cut your resume up to basically just show relevant work. Now, again, gaps in employment history usually need to be asked and explained about. So recruiters and people will be like, oh, your resume looks great, but I see like an 8-month gap here. What were you doing during that time? Because a gap of employment can usually mean like, hey, you might not be as well-rounded as we think you are. You've been out of the, whatever for a while, especially if you're in a career field where knowledge is important, but it kind of doesn't seem like that's the case here. So yeah, just don't even include it on your resume if it's that short. Like, just don't. So I would just leave if you can, and if you can't, look for other employment. I mean, you already know the answer to that, it seems. All right, this question comes from Powerful Winner 979 from Idaho, I believe. Do companies have different tiers of rejection letters? I've never seen this kind of question before. Do companies have different tiers of rejection letters depending on how competitive a candidate is? For example, a poor candidate, they might send a form of, oh, unfortunately, you're no longer under consideration type email. While for a very competitive candidate, there may be more of a personalized message, including they actually do want that person to apply again. I would tell you that most companies have a very automated rejection notice that goes out to everybody that doesn't get the job. Now, what'll usually happen is a more competitive candidate, so maybe a second or third choice, after the initial offer is signed by the primary choice, will get a phone call from the recruiter or the hiring manager saying, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. We went with a different candidate. It was very close. I appreciate you taking the time to interview with us. Keep an eye out. We really liked your candidacy, and if something comes up in the future, we'll let you know. Then they will also send the automated rejection letter / email to that person. So usually companies don't bake in different types of rejection letters. Now, I have seen varying types of rejection letters based on the job. So like, for example, if you're in a position where the application was for an internal transfer only, an internal promotion only, you may get a rejection letter that that just explains things differently. Or if you're like, applying for a job that, maybe they have like the independent contractor version of the job, they'll invite you to apply for that in the letter too. But most of the time, all rejection letters are candid and exactly the same. All right, this next question comes from slow_community 7717 in New York. It says, manager said inappropriate and unprofessional things to me regarding a coworker, and I have gotten HR involved. So you're asking on AskHR. Let's see why. I work in the service industry, however, the business corporation with over 200 employees. They have a full HR team, and many things are done by the book. A couple of weeks ago, my general manager and I were talking about issues with new hires regarding job expectations, etc. I said about one employee, I am just going to start being a dick to him so he quits on his own. That's what he said. Okay. I told him he shouldn't say that, and that won't fix anything. He continued to call the employee a smartass and ungrateful for a job. Today, he raised his voice at me after I casually asked him a question regarding scheduling. He behaved aggressively, slamming down things on the table and snapping at me that I was pressing him and putting him on a tight spot. My coworker was right next to me for the entire thing. They heard me ask question and watched our manager lose his cool. My manager then took me into the break room and continued to yell at me. Ooh, this is like borderline assault. I then told him I do not feel comfortable having a one-on-one conversation with him and that I no longer feel comfortable working with him. He then told me to leave and talk to the regional manager. He called the regional manager and told them I raised my voice at him. The regional manager and I spoke later on, and I told them my side of the story as well as the GM said to me before regarding the new employee. HR is going to get involved. I don't know what to do or how to prepare myself. What can I do to protect myself? All right. So very good question, because a lot of people are nervous about approaching HR when they have these kind of issues. There are whistleblower laws and protections that protect you as an employee from basically retaliation from a company for going forth with a legitimate concern. So based on what you've written, this is a legitimate concern. You can't be terminated for voicing the concern at all, right? And it's clear that your boss is starting to lie about you raising your voice if you didn't actually do that, right? So with HR, what's going to happen, it's a very simple conversation. An HR rep or an investigator will reach out to you. They'll say like, hey, you know what, this conversation is confidential. Be as honest as you can with me. We'll try to do our best to keep you confidential as well. But, obviously certain things can't be confidential and we don't accept retaliation, blah, blah, blah. They'll give you kind of a spiel to start. And then they'll ask you questions about what happened. Be open, be honest. Come prepared to state a few things in case they don't ask you about them, because usually at the end they'll be like, all right, that's all my questions. Do you have anything else for me that I should notate? And you want to take an opportunity to make sure that your side of the story is perfectly clear. Make sure you understand and have the names of individuals that may have witnessed the scenario. I would probably avoid telling them that like, hey, HR is coming, or hey, I can't believe HR said this, because that usually skews the story and it makes it difficult to really determine what happened. But, give them clear names of who may have been witnessing to that scenario and that situation. And then on your side, document that you talked to HR. Because if this happens again and it results in your termination, or if it's clear that nothing's been done, there is laws that require employers to provide safe and acceptable working conditions. And that includes how your managers talk to you. So that's some advice from an HR pro like myself. All right, this question is from FarBig9866, Florida. I need my money. Here we go. I'm leaving my job of 17 years, and I'm a salaried employee who is co-employed with a payroll company here in Florida. I have worked 3 out of the 5 days in this pay period. I'm concerned my employer is going to try to not pay me for those 2 days, even though I am on salary and constantly work OT without compensation. That's just a part of being a salaried employee. Okay, people always say that about salaried work, but I don't know how that works since I've ended my employment. I am entitled to my full 40 hours in my last check. I also have 2 vacation days left, but I never got paid out for those unused days. I'm too scared to call the payroll company and have them tell my boss anything I say. Please help. All right, so basically, here's the deal. You are entitled to be paid the days that you worked, right? So if you quit, say, midweek during like a pay period and you're a salaried employee, you're not entitled to the full 2 weeks of pay, but you are entitled to a portion of your pay based on how much you've worked. So if you worked, say, 10 hours in the 40 of that week, and then, the rest are, you've quit at that point, you'll be paid an equivalent of 10 hours of your pay. Now, most companies, what they do, even if you're salaried, they'll know your yearly amount, your monthly amount, your weekly amount, and your hourly amount. And they'll basically just take your hourly amount, multiply it by how many days you worked and how many hours are usually in those days, and pay you out in that way. So yes, you are entitled to pay for the days that you worked, even if it's not a full week. And if you don't get paid, talk to an employment attorney and take them to court for it, because then it's entitled wages and back pay and stuff like that. So The other thing too, salaried employees it means you're exempt from overtime because you are paid for the average amount of hours that you work. So if your employer basically tells you we're paying you for 40 hours of work, but you're going to be working 50, you can have a conversation with them and frankly say, hey, you need to make sure that my pay matches the amount of hours that I'm going to be working. So if a standard person say makes $50,000 a year for 40 hours of work, but you're making me work 50, I deserve a little bit more money. See what they say to that. And again, talk to an employment attorney. Salaried is again supposed to be a consistent pay for hours that you are working throughout the calendar year. And if it's more than a traditional amount, you should be paid a little bit more. All right, last question of the video. We'll go to Throwaway at 3891 in California. Is this enough to go to HR for bullying? For the reference, this bully works the same position as me. That doesn't necessarily matter, but okay. At my job, we are supposed to check supplies in another area of the property every hour. So within the first hour of the shift, I tell the bully that I'm going out there and checking, and I checked out the area. When I came back, he got mad and yelled at me. He accused me of not doing enough work and threatened to send me home even though he has no power to, right? This is not an isolated incident. I have heard from other coworkers that he verbally attacks them as well. I no longer feel safe working around him and worry this is just going to get worse. Should I go to HR management with this? What do you think that like HR and managers do if you this is like classic harassment? Go to your manager, go to HR. Tell them what happened. Tell them when it happened. Tell them who the witnesses are. I feel like I'm repeating what I said earlier in the video, but yes, clearly go to HR. We can help in these scenarios. Anyway, that's enough for me for this video. Hope you liked it. If you like and want to see more, feel free to let me know. You can also ask your HR related questions in the comment section below. If I might grab them and put them right here in this general space and be like, yo, I'm going to answer this question for you. So, yeah, I'm not saying anything else. Okay, bye. HR is really cool. It's really cool and not lame. I promise.